In this video, I'm going to look at sort of a hello world in React. I'm going to use React 18. I'm going to use it by invoking a CDN, a content delivery network. And it's just going to, we're going to dynamically generate some elements as one does in React, but they're going to be very simple elements like, a header and a div. Okay, so this code can be found at this URL if you want your own version of it. Okay, so it's a terribly exciting page. It's got some headers and some divs, and I generated dynamically and maybe adding in some styles or assigning them IDs or classes, what have you. Okay. So here we go. It's got a head, got a title. Here is the two CDNs using React 8. So I'm going to get, if I look in my console, I'm going to get not an error, but a warning, like things would be better if I downloaded this, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to keep it up the CDN. So let me show you that. If I inspect, look at the console, the error is just that sort of fave icon. If I refresh, that one will go away. But it's going to give me a warning that, life would be better if I were to download the React development tools, but I'm not going to. Okay, so I have some style. The body is not terribly interesting to us, but I am going to give something a class, and I generate dynamically, and it will be styled based on this container class. So that will be this blue violet. And then I'm also going to assign something an ID dynamically, and that will have this dark slate blue coloring. So that's other than just having a little bit of style, the purpose of that was that I can assign them dynamically. Okay, so I just have some header that's on the page to start. I have some little paragraph that's on the page to start. So that's just in design. And then after that, we see here, I have this header, this paragraph, they're in design. And then I have 3 empty divs, and then starts the script. So everything below this paragraph, is going to be generated dynamically. So here's the paragraph. These were all generated dynamically. Okay, so let's start to look at the script that generates them. And I'm going to write 3 classes that extend the React component. So React has defined a class. We are extending it, so we're giving it some additional features and particular to our situation. And the one method that we need to say what we want to do is render. What do we want to put on the page? And so here's our first simplest example. I'm going to create a React component. I'm going to tell you it's what I mean by render, what I want to render on the page. I'm going to use a React to create an element that is an H1 element, and that this first argument is what type of element I'm making. I'm making an H1. The next attribute is that is if you are making an H1. So here's an H1. H1 has, you could put attributes here. So H1 is the type of tag I'm making. And then I could put attributes of H1 inside the tag. And then there's the stuff that's between the open H1 and the close H1. Those are the 3 arguments. What am I making? H1. Do I have any attributes? Not in this case. And what goes between the open H1 and the close H1? Just some text. So that's what made this I am a dynamic header. So I didn't put it on the page yet, I just made it. Well, let me scroll down since I said that and show me putting it on the page. So I am declaring a constant called div1, where I am creating a root, and I'm going to that empty div I made, div target _1. And then I am rendering in that div, and I'm creating an element of the hello1 type. So I defined my hello1, and then this is what puts it on the page. So I created an element, I extended their class by creating a specific element that was h1 that said I'm a dynamic header. And then this down here was the code for actually putting it on the page. Here's the place on the page that I created for it. And then here's me adding it to the page. So let me add a little bit more. So in this second header, I am going to have an attribute. So I didn't, up there it was null, I had no attribute. Now I want to add an attribute, and it's an object. And so we're going to use like a JSON notation, and we are adding the attributes as an object. So a sort of key value pairs. And so the key was ID and the value was some ID. And then we can see that that will happen if I once again expand my style. I did some styling of some ID based. The pound here or hashtag means I'm styling based on ID. So when I had this dark slate, the dark slate, that is the styling of an ID. So my header here indeed had this ID attribute and got styled accordingly. And I put it on the page. And in my third one, showing that I'm going to, the element I'm going to make is a div, and then inside the div is a header. And so I can put things within things. Now it only wants me to return one thing, but I can return my one thing can contain other things. So it doesn't allow multiple siblings, but it allows sort of a single parent with multiple children. So if I want to have a lot of things, I just put them all in a container and then render the container. Okay, so here is my React component and my render and my return, and I'm making this time a div. I am giving the div a class. So this is the second argument is the attribute. So I have an object using JSON notation. So a key value pair. I can have multiple key value pairs, but I only have one in this case. I'm assigning this a class. Now I'm working in JavaScript to generate HTML. And so you've got to watch in React that especially certain common programming words that may belong or have a meaning in both HTML and in JavaScript. And the word class is such a word. And so I need to not use simply the word class, because then JavaScript will think it's class. Like here, that's this in 79, that word class there, that's the JavaScript class. Down here, I'm citing an attribute that is an HTML attribute. And so I sort of, in React, you make a sort of distinction. We'll call it class name. But it will get sort of brought into the system sort of as if it had a class, and then it will take on this container class styling that is this blue violet down here. Okay, so this was number 3. Okay, so I'm making the React component I'm making is a div. I'm giving it an attribute, a class attribute, so it would be styled, but I can't simply say class because of the I need to distinguish between the HTML class and the JavaScript class. And then the contents, I can have another sort of sub-element, an element within the element, a child element. And so I am making a header element. So I'm using React again to make a header element with its own attributes, or in this case, no attributes, and sort of contents. And then I added it to the page. Okay, so that's what I wanted to show you. I am using React 18. I had 3 divs that were empty. I defined 3 classes that extended the class and used render and tell me what I wanted to add to the page in using React. And then here is the actual code sort of creating this root and then using the root to render the element. And that's what actually then put it on the page. So that's what I wanted to show you. Thanks for your attention.